This is Marketing from the Frontlines, where we speak with B2B marketers who are in the trenches, bringing technology to market. Here's your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines.io.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. Today we're speaking with Jessica Davies, Head of Marketing at Aerobotics. Jessica, how are you?
Well, thanks to yourself, Brett.
I'm doing great, thank you. And I'm really excited for this conversation. Before we jump in, why don't you tell us which beautiful country you're calling in from?
I'm calling in from Cape Town, South Africa.
That is amazing and very jealous. I've been there a couple of times and it's just a very special, a very magical place. What's the tech startup scene like in Cape Town? I guess maybe just more broad South Africa.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say Cape Town is the tech hub of South Africa. It is very small in comparison to the likes of a Silicon Valley or the US. This is largely because of the population size and the market that we serve. So the companies that tend to do well find a problem here that they can solve well, and scale globally.
Amazing. And for you and your journey, how'd you end up in this world of marketing?
Atypically, I actually a actuarial scientist by qualification. So I studied statistics and maths at university and then went into banking, where I was involved in strategy and analytics in the corporate investment bank. And one of the questions I was asked there was, how is the bank dealing with all this new technology that's coming into the banking environment, our clients' environment? And I worked with someone from the venture capital space, and we designed a way which the bank could engage with startups, new technology, and really facilitate partnerships between tech companies solving interesting problems and our own bank requirements and our customers' requirements. And one of those companies was Aerobotics. I joined Aerobotics a couple of years later as financial partnerships lead, and eventually got asked to lead the marketing team. So I come from a very non-marketing background, a very analytical background, numbers-based, very data-driven. But as usual, in a small startup, scale-up environment, team members often get asked to wear different hats, and this was the hat that was asked of me.
And what was that like for you as you transitioned into this role, learning all of the marketing? What was that like?
I very quickly learned that there are many different jobs to be done in marketing. The skills are varied, the expertise are deep, and it's a big challenge to wrap your head around all the different facets of marketing. It's a lot of context switching. It's a lot of, like I said, broad knowledge, but then deep expertise. So just trying to understand what was needed of me from the business's point of view was kind of priority number one, and doing my best to put all the pieces together to solve for that.
Amazing. And maybe let's talk a little bit about Aerobotics. So what does the company do at a very high level? And then who is that target customer that you're selling to?
Sure. So Aerobotics is an agritech company, which most people would assume that we, service the agricultural market around the world. But in fact, we're actually very niche in our target market. So in one line, Aerobotics uses drones and phones to measure trees and fruit. This is very specific to the fruit and nut industry. So within ag, we're actually very niche in terms of our target market. We work with fruit companies and nut companies around the world.
And is it mainly in Europe? Is it mainly in Africa, mainly in the US? Or is it all over the world? Is it evenly distributed? Or is there kind of a big market that you're really focused on and the other markets are secondary markets?
California and the US are our biggest markets, but we do operate in the major fruit and nut growing regions of the world. So South Africa, very large citrus exporter, and other fruit and nut growing regions like Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and Latin America. So we operate around the world, and we have a distributed sales team, so key salespeople in key regions.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode.
When we look at your marketing philosophy, how do you think about marketing?
In terms of marketing at Aerobotics, like I said, we're a niche industry. So it's actually, I feel, fairly simple at the end of the day. There's a known number of fruit companies around the world. Our question is, who are these companies? How do we get in touch with them? And how do we show them the value that we can add to their business?
For tactics and channels, what are areas that you're really doubling down on right now? And are there any areas that you were testing that you've since pulled back on?
So we're in an interesting space where we're a SaaS company operating an agricultural industry. So we deal with the benefits and challenges of both those industries, right? So we have a product which is highly scalable where customers can take pictures of fruit with their phone and we process and analyze that fruit in our platform. So on one hand, it is incredibly scalable because the user can just use their phone to access our product and services and value. On the other hand, they are growers and they are distributed around the world and even within our core regions, geographically very distributed. So for that personal connection in which plays a very big role in agriculture, it's a very distributed customer base. So we deal with the challenges of how can we service our customers? How can we maintain our relationships? How can we build our relationships over time? And therefore, we tend to be quite event focused. So we align ourselves to events that our customers and prospects attending, which tend to be regional fruit events aligned with industry bodies or global fruit trade fairs and the like. So again, compared to a typical SaaS company, we're probably very events heavy in terms of channels and marketing tactics. However, farmers are young, they're still online. The age demographics vary per region, but there are still ways to reach them either through the likes of a LinkedIn, where they are actively trying to sell their fruit themselves, therefore promote themselves as a business, and we can connect with them there, or they're either on the younger demographic scale and they still use Facebook, they use Instagram, and therefore we can target based on region. The regions are very specific in terms of what people are growing and producing. And so we found that to be another channel that we can reach our customers in.
What's the key to standing out at events? What do you do? Because I know it's hard. Everyone's there trying to sell something. Everyone's there trying to capture attention. Anything that you've learned in standing out and really driving impact from events?
Yes, I would say at events, actually, our strategy is almost to scale back somewhat, where simpler is better. So we actually don't have a lot of information on designs at our stand. Instead, we rely on the high quality visuals in our industry to really sell the product and what we do. So I'll always remember when I first joined the company, my first boss said, we're so lucky to be in a marketing team where we have such a visually appealing product. We work with the best fruit companies in the world and they're growing apples and oranges and grapes. And what he said really stuck with me, letting the imagery, sell itself. We help our customers grow and produce the highest quality fruit that they can. So we really use those visuals in a strong way. And I think we really pared down the information. I think in ag, there's so much information thrown at growers and producers and marketers every day. We really try zone in on what information matters and really make that stand out in our designs. So really clean finishes, really high quality aesthetics, and not a whole lot of gimmicks. We want real fruit at our stand. We want real trees at our stand. I've been at, fruit trade fairs where someone will literally pick an orange from a tree and look at surprise that it's a real orange. They expect stands to put on a display of fake fruit or, something like that. So we always try to go for what's real, authentic, and let the product speak for itself.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can see why that strategy works, probably not just in your industry, but in every industry. When it comes to the marketing team, how many other folks are there besides yourself?
Right now, it's myself and 3 others.
Okay. And what's the rough makeup of the group?
So we have a brand and communications manager where that relies on our digital channels and also largely our event work. Our event work, because it's such a big part of our strategy, kind of fills across all our teams. Myself as the head of the team largely drives strategy and analytics. Like I said, I'm very numbers orientated, very data orientated. So I spend a lot of my time tracking how we're doing in terms of our objectives and the company goals. And then we have sales enablement. Because we have a distributed sales team, we want to make sure they have the best resources possible in front of the clients and resources that are relevant to them. Even though fruit is an industry in and of itself, there are subsectors regarding citrus, regarding table grapes, regarding apples, different farming practices, different imagery, different use cases. So we have a sales enablement person to align all those materials together, and then a junior marketing resource who really assists across the board.
When you think ahead for the rest of 2025, what are some of the top objectives and goals that you have?
In terms of 2025, we've really spent a lot of time over the last few years mapping out our industry. It is not unlimited. There are a finite number of fruit and nut companies around the world. We've done our best to identify these companies, reach out to them, and showcase our value. And a big emphasis on 2025 is really demonstrating that value and assisting our sales team in conversion of that pipeline. So it's a very different approach to a D2C business or a business where there's a very large top of funnel and you need to, convert it through the respective stages. In that, we actually have a very defined target account audience, and how do we best convert those audience into customers?
Final question for you. What advice would you have to other marketing leaders who are let's imagine that you're sitting down actually with another VP of marketing. They're just now getting ready to start a new role. What advice would you have to them to really succeed at that new role?
I think two pieces of advice. One is to really align yourself with what are the objectives of the business. So what are your CEO, your fellow colleagues in sales and customer success really trying to achieve, and how does marketing line up against that? Because if you're all moving in different directions, it's going to be very difficult to argue your case or demonstrate your value or really move forward and align on your strategy. And then secondly, that your industry is unique, so you have to tailor your strategy according to that. One of the things I've learned, even though I operate in a B2B enterprise, sales environment space, is that there are ag influences, there are enterprise influences, there are, niche market influences where the same strategy that works for another company does not necessarily work for ours. And where industry norms would tell you need a bigger audience, or you shouldn't be paying this much cost per click, is you really just have to go out and experiment and try and find out what works for your industry. And the more you know your customers, the more of an intuition you will get for what are the right metrics for your business.
Amazing. I love the advice, and I really love this conversation and appreciate you hanging out with us here on a Friday evening, your time. So thank you again for taking the time, and wish you and the team the best of luck.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.